The very first time I messaged you was on Instagram, December 26th. And you'd messaged me October that year. And you said, random, we actually used a riff of your webinar structure to pitch to pensions in our investment fund, and it worked. So first off, can you tell me about that story? Because I got to know.
That's wild. Yeah, that was back before I was on the internet. So I don't know how I came across you. It must have been on Instagram. So that's where I messaged you. But at the time, I sold investment products and managed a company that had separately managed accounts, exchange traded funds, and what's called commingled funds that are mirror portfolios to big pensions and sovereign wealth funds in Latin America. And so I was running around Latin America trying to get them to give us money for us to invest. And we weren't having that much success with one market. I think it was Chile. And so I talked to other salespeople and nothing was really working. And then for some reason I came across your Instagram and I must have seen one of your funnels and then clicked through it. And you had a full presentation at that time, I think, that was out there publicly, maybe it still is, that you became known for. Was it like the perfect webinar or something?
For a webinar.
Okay. And so the perfect webinar, and I just was like, this is so weird for investment world. Like nobody had ever talked like this. I had no idea what priming was. I didn't know about, doing a close that had whatever the value stack or all that in it.
Yeah.
I never heard about anything like that. And yet, because we created custom investment products, I was like, we could do all of this. And so instead of doing what typically we do in the investment world, which is like, here's all the things that are happening in the world. You don't want to be in China now. You want to be in Europe. You want to be, in small caps, not large caps. We want to protect your downside risk. And it's all, what is that? Right brain? Like it's very analytical. And there's no emotional pleas and there's no real knowing your target audience except their portfolio. And so when I saw your thing, I was like, well, it's not working how we're doing it. What if we try this? And I did it and we closed a big pension fund. I think that was one of our first, they're called AFPs. It was one of our first pensions in Chile.
Uh-huh.
How wild.
That's so cool.
I know.
It's funny. I had someone today who literally was on a call I was on and they're like, so I'm doing a funnel, but it's B2B, so I can't use the perfect webinar because these people don't buy emotionally. What should we do instead? And I was like, literally humans are humans. I don't care what you say. Like, yes, there's different versions, different things, but like human psychology works, doesn't matter what you're selling. And so anyway.
It's so true.
It made me so happy to see that.
Yeah. Well, and every time I forget that because I'm very analytical, we don't have the desired end state that I want. Like when I forget it with my team, when I'm leading them in a meeting and I just go, here's the numbers, here's what I need to have happen, et cetera. And then I'm like, why aren't you guys doing this? And I realize, wow, like psychology is the undercurrent to getting somebody closer to the action you want them to take.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So next question is, how did you go from doing all of that to now you are on the internet talking about all sorts of things? Like how was that transition and what did your family think about that?
Oh yeah. My parents were not thrilled. I remember my mom at the time, because, I had a few grad degrees and I'd worked at some big companies in finance. So it was prestigious sort of, right? More sophisticated. And even though I wasn't a huge deal at the time, I was, a partner at some private equity firms. They weren't great ones. The next step would have probably been trying to go and do my own independent private equity fund. And I basically looked at all of the people who were more successful than me in my sphere and thought, I want nothing to do with this. Couldn't see myself in any of them. And I had been through like 4 or 5 companies. So I was like, all right, I'm at Vanguard. Let's see what they could do. Did that for like a year and a half, 2 years. And then I was like, no, I don't see myself here. And then I did it at Goldman, let's call it 1.5 years, 2 years, didn't see myself in it. Then I did it at State Street, same thing. And so I thought it was the firm every single time. I thought it was the company, or maybe it was the exact position there. So if I do it in Latin America, if I do it in high yield bonds instead. And then finally I got to a company called First Trust, which I think, I wasn't a culture fit for, but had like a completely different subset of people. I was like, God, I don't see myself here either. Like, I don't want any of this. I don't want multiple divorces. I don't really care about the big fancy cars. I don't want to go to the country club every weekend. So what am I doing? And that happened right about at the same time that for some reason, people like you were infecting me on the internet. Mm-hmm. And you were infecting me with your internet thinking. And I thought, wait, the way we're selling investments is 19th century, basically. We're having these meetings, we're taking them out to nice dinners, we're not even doing PowerPoints. I would have like printed brief materials every time, that we would walk through, and then we'd have like a long sales cycle. And I was like, I think that the internet could help with this. And I think we should probably create some newsletters, and maybe we should have some funnels. Maybe we should like drip on these people in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know if they do it now because I've been out of that game for 7 years, but that was not a thing. In fact, it was so not a thing that I got in a fight with one of my partners at the company because he was like, it will never be done this way. You will never raise money this way. You will never get deal flow this way. And in fact, people will think less of you. And so we're not doing it. And if you want to do it that way, then you have to do it at another firm. And I was like, bye, Felicia. And so anyway, so I'm really good friends with 2 of those partners still. They're great guys, but they just wanted to do it differently, which is totally reasonable. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go try to do something on the internet because I think there's this opportunity here in finance and investing. And I think I can get great deal flow and I can teach a bunch of people alongside me to do it too. And that teaching can lead to more deals and more investors and at the same time help everybody else. And so that's sort of how it happened. Interesting.
And how many years ago was that transition?
That would have been, fully was 2020.
Okay.
I left the first firm where the one where I kind of got in a fight and was like, we should do this on the internet. That was First Trust. So whenever I left First Trust, so let's call it maybe 2 years before that. So something like 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay. Now I want to understand this because I have some people who come into our world and they've got something they're good at and they're trying to transition into this, like, I'm going to be out there in front of people talking about it. And that transition point is really hard and so I'm curious for you, like, what did you start, I'm going to start posting on Instagram, or I'm going to create a course, or what was the mechanism where you're like shifting from this to that world? Like, what was the first thing that you actually did?
The first thing I did was a newsletter.
Okay.
I wasn't looking to monetize online at that time. I just wanted to increase optionality. I was like, if I have more optionality because I have more attention and eyeballs, then I will be able to achieve more things, which I think is true by and large. The more attention that you can drive, the more of options you have to determine what to do with that attention. And so that was the first step. Plus, I think newsletters are the least scary, at least to me.
Yeah.
It goes into somebody's inbox. You don't have to look at their reaction to the inbox. There's no comments really on them. It's long form. It gives you the ability to actually finish your thoughts more than a 30-second view. You also don't have to get really good at video quickly. It's more forgiving as a format. So for all those reasons, I thought, okay, well, let's start here. I also like writing. And so newsletters, I think, are an incredible place to start for that reason. And so much so that we've made some investments in that. We invest in a company called Beehive because I think more and more people will do this. Obviously, your company is a testament to that. And then from there, I started on Instagram, but solely because I liked the platform and I kind of knew it.
Were you using Instagram to get people to join the newsletter? Or was that the initial plan?
I had to think back to exactly what we did. I think we have an article. If you go to contrarianthinking.co, there's an article on how I've got my first 30,000 and 10,000 subscribers. And I tried to catalog it from day 1 to day 30, just to see what I could do. And I know we started with Instagram and LinkedIn aggressively because I was a corporate person, right? So I'm like, I guess all my friends are on LinkedIn. And so those two things grew us a lot. And then we were very old school. Back in the day, I would hack Facebook groups that have a lot of people in them with really good high value content. And then if they liked it, I'd say, if you guys want, I can drop a link to where the full article is, but the full article would be my newsletter.
Yeah.
And that's how I did it originally.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's cool. So were you still working at the time that you started that? Or how because you weren't monetizing initially, what was when did you pull the switch?
The trigger. Yeah. Well, I had, ever since I was at State Street, which would have been more than 10 years ago, I've always, in finance, you're always allowed to do something called club deals typically. And club deals are you can go and buy real estate or invest in small companies together or buy businesses together. And as long as it's not conflicts of interest or individual stocks, you're usually fine. So I had done club deals for a long time. So I had income from buying some of these businesses, buying part of the businesses, buying GPs of asset management companies. And so I had that going. And then I had always been a little bit of a dabbler, like a lot of people are. People talk badly about entrepreneurs. I think some people just have longer runways. And so I was that, for a year, I tried a little fashion stylist marketplace. I tried a international consulting business. I tried a couple of different GPs of funds. And eventually in 2020 is where I took the full plunge. But really, before that, I probably have been 2 years as a partner in a firm messing around with stuff. And probably 3 years before that, trying different things that seemed interesting to me. I could never fully make the jump.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's interesting to me because I think a lot of people seem like they wait on the sidelines until like their big thing's going to come. You know, like they're sort of waiting. Like I've had people like, I'm waiting for my ClickFunnels to show up. I'm like, the reason my ClickFunnels showed up for me is because I launched 120 funnels prior to ClickFunnels in a million different things, trying to figure out what was going to work.
Exactly.
And then trying like, I actually like the funnel thing the best. Let me talk about the byproduct of me doing this thing, right? But it's fascinating saying that I agree with that, where you're trying things to figure out like what's the thing you're going to resonate with, and what like actually starts working, so you can double down and keep going deeper on it, right?
Totally. You have been sold a complete fallacy if you think that the first thing that you do is going to be the final thing that you do. That's just not how life works. And so I think a lot of people on the internet these days, they have survivorship bias, right? So they succeeded in what they were doing, and oftentimes that was a case where they jumped all in because they already had that relentless pursuit. Often that's what success demands. And so those people look like they are more common, and thus it is more common to win like that. But I actually think it's more common for the hyper outperformers to win like that, to go all in and to take a big risk. But for the average person, they don't want the life of a hyper performer. You know, it is incredibly difficult.
It's very stressful.
It's very stressful. I mean, you can run a couple six-figure business, $1 million business, and it can be really cool and lifestyle driven. And then I think complexity just increases. And with complexity comes a lot of drama. And so you got to ask yourself what you want. What do you really want? And, you know, are you doing it just because other humans have it and you think you want it?
Yeah, for sure. I'm next curious, like for you, like right now, your message is dialed in, you know, like what you're talking about, your new book coming out, like all this stuff, like you figured all this stuff out, right? When you first start with the newsletter, did you know that's the direction you were going, or how long did it take for you to finally figure out like, okay, this is my message, this is what I'm talking about, this is, and so you can really double down on it, you know?
Oh yeah. There were multiple iterations. You know, the first, I think probably 3. At first, my idea was, I thought people kind of lost their minds in 2020. And I thought we stopped questioning everything. We assumed, you know, trust the science, believe in the experts. And we forgot the definition of science. And we forgot that experts are just people who have some expertise in something. It does not mean they are all knowing, including myself and you. And so I was annoyed by that. And as a former journalist, I was like, I think let's make a newsletter that just basically lets us talk to each other and say, hey, here's what I see happening in the world. Do you see this too? What am I getting wrong? Like, let's have a conversation about this. And so that's what I started with at first. And I called it contrarian thinking because I thought we needed more of that. We needed more people to think critically. And then I realized that everybody thinks that they are a critical thinker. And so
well, they are not.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, oh, people don't really want to learn how to be a better thinker in many cases. They want to learn how to adapt the world to their desire. And so I was like, well, so what's a way for me to get people to think critically and to get people to have skin in the game, which I think is the main way you will have success in life, is if you surround yourself with people who are incentive aligned to want the same thing that you do, and you actually clearly know what you want. And so I was like, well, what does everybody want? I mean, it's the core. You guys know this in psychology, right? Like people want love, people want relevancy, people want money, people want health, people want sex. And so I was like, well, I don't know much about sex or love or how to make people feel relevant, but I know a lot about money. So I was like, well, why don't we start with money? Because if people understand money, then they can understand ownership. If they understand ownership, then they have skin in the game. And that was my thought process. And that's where we really dialed in our messaging. And I was like, well, what makes me able to see some of the things that are happening in the world right now and slightly push back? Well, it's because I have financial freedom. So I'm not scared to lose my job. You know, it's because I understand how to look at numbers and math, because I understand running a P&L. And it's that I understand that there are repercussions to actions, because a balance sheet is a zero-sum game. Like you're either winning or losing. There's no shades of gray. And so because of that, I thought this would be really useful for a lot of people in our world to have financial freedom, to understand these things. And then I bet they would build it instead of burn it down.
Mm-hmm.